Hello everyone, and welcome! In today's SHRM-CP Practice Questions 200 Questions and Answers Practice Session, we'll go through 200 updated questions designed to help you prepare for the exam. When each question appears, pause the video first. Choose the answer you believe is correct, then comment your answer below before resuming the video to see the correct answer. Keep track of your score as you move through the questions, and let's get started. Flashcard 1. Which of the following best describes situational leadership? A. Leaders adjust their style based on organizational culture. B. Leaders adapt their approach according to employee readiness and development level. C. Leaders consistently use a directive style to maintain control. D. Leaders prioritize traits such as confidence and charisma above all else. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Leaders adapt their approach according to employee readiness and development level. Flashcard 2. Participative leadership emphasizes A. Decision-making centralized with the leader. B. High levels of employee input and collaboration in decisions. C. Strict adherence to policies and directives. D. Limiting employee involvement to execution only. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. High levels of employee input and collaboration in decisions. Flashcard 3. An heart rate director ties employee recognition awards directly to quarterly performance metrics. This demonstrates A. Servant leadership. B. Transformational leadership. C. Transactional leadership. D. Inclusive leadership. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Transactional leadership. Flashcard 4. A servant leader primarily seeks to A. Maintain compliance with organizational rules. B. Serve and empower employees before pursuing personal or organizational goals. C. Influence through charisma and vision. D. Prioritize outcomes over people. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Serve and empower employees before pursuing personal or organizational goals. Flashcard 5. The leader-member exchange LMX model focuses on A. Transactional reward systems. B. One-size-fits-all leadership practices. C. The quality of the relationship between leaders and individual followers. D. Visionary and inspirational communication. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. The quality of the relationship between leaders and individual followers. Flashcard 6. Which characteristic is most associated with inclusive leadership? A. Rewarding employees for meeting clear performance standards. B. Emphasizing diversity of perspectives and psychological safety. C. Directing employees through strict task instructions. D. Relying on historical traits of successful leaders. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Relying on historical traits of successful leaders. Flashcard 7. Transformational leaders primarily A. Focus on routine exchanges of rewards for performance. B. Depend solely on authority and compliance to achieve results. C. Avoid delegating responsibilities to employees. D. Inspire and motivate employees by creating vision and commitment. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Inspire and motivate employees by creating vision and commitment. Flashcard 8. You are managing a new hire who lacks experience but shows enthusiasm. According to situational leadership, which approach should you take? A. Delegate responsibility and allow full autonomy. B. Encourage peer mentoring without oversight. C. Provide clear direction and close supervision. D. Rely on transactional rewards to build trust. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Provide clear direction and close supervision. Flashcard 9. An heart rate manager wants to inspire employees during a major organizational change. Which transformational leadership behavior would be most effective? A. Creating a compelling vision and motivating employees to commit to it. B. Offering financial incentives for compliance. C. Avoiding employee input to ensure speed of decisions. D. Focusing only on high-performing employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Creating a compelling vision and motivating employees to commit to it. Flashcard 10. Your heart rate team is designing a new wellness program. Which action best reflects participative leadership? A. Developing the program alone and presenting it to staff for approval. B. Engaging employees in brainstorming sessions to design the program together. C. Assigning tasks without considering employee feedback. D. Allowing only senior leaders to set wellness goals. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Engaging employees in brainstorming sessions to design the program together. Flashcard 11. Which of the following is the best definition of inclusion? A. Having a diverse workforce with unique education and experience. B. Hiring individuals regardless of demographic characteristics. C. Ensuring that all employees can use their unique talents and are welcome. D. Making sure that heart rate systems are unbiased. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Ensuring that all employees can use their unique talents and are welcome. Ensuring that a workforce has diverse talents is not enough, as these employees must also be able to use their talents and feel welcome, making C the best choice. Options B and D are best practices to ensure that discrimination does not occur in a company's hiring systems. Flashcard 12. Of the following, which group is not offered protection under the original Title Roman 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964? A. Age. B. Race. C. Ethnicity. D. National origin. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Age. Title Roman 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 originally defined race, ethnicity, and national origin as protected from employment discrimination. Factors such as age, sex, disability, religion, and military status have all been added through Title Roman 7 amendments or separate non-discrimination laws. Flashcard 13. Of the following dimensions of culture, which is most outside of the organization's control? A. Union affiliation. B. Management status. C. Promotion rates of minorities. D. Education levels of employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Union affiliation. Option A is the correct answer because organizations do not have direct control over whether employees choose to unionize. Companies can control the systems designed to promote employees into management positions. B, C, and the hiring practices or job design that require educational degrees. D. Flashcard 14. The company that you work for has a high rate of Hispanic employees, but they are concentrated in one specific department and are significantly underrepresented at the management level and above. There are female leads, but they seem hesitant to apply for promotions. Executive management has looked to you to suggest ways to increase this group's representation in leadership. Which of the following DEI strategies should you recommend? A. A leadership development initiative for minority groups. B. Coordinating a diversity council to identify the limitations. C. Designing training programs to teach English. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Coordinating a diversity council to identify the limitations. As with any organizational strategy, a needs assessment must be completed to identify the gaps and barriers between current and desired state. Coordinating a diversity council to identify these needs will allow heart rate to design initiatives, such as leadership development or offering language classes. C, which achieve results and that align with corporate strategy. Creating a leadership development initiative for minority groups may very well be a council's recommendation. However, the question notes that these employees are hesitant to apply for promotion, suggesting that there are barriers that must be identified and prioritized before a specific plan is developed. Flashcard 15. The project meetings at your organization are disorganized, unproductive, and quite frankly exhausting. The sessions are dominated by one department representative, who is convinced that they have the answer to every issue that is brought up. Lately, you have noticed that many meeting attendees have just stopped offering their thoughts, and their body language signals that a different type of groupthink is occurring outside of the meeting room. Of the following strategies, which will result in creating a more inclusive and thus productive meeting? A. Do not invite the dominating team member to the meetings. B. Talk privately with the group members who seem most annoyed about the behavior. C. Conduct training on how important diversity of thought is to an inclusive culture. D. Establish ground rules for how the meetings will be run. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Conduct training on how important diversity of thought is to an inclusive culture. Encouraging diversity of thought is necessary for creative and informed problem-solving and decision-making. Often, an inclusive workplace is derailed in the day-to-day functions such as meeting participation. By bringing the group together to facilitate a discussion about the importance of diversity of thought, you create the opportunity to identify barriers and include team members in solving inclusivity challenges, even outside of the meeting room. Option A is the antithesis of inclusive practices, so it would not be recommended. Option B is divisive as well, and it can be perceived as gossipy or one-sided. Option D is a good idea, but the question does not note whether these ground rules are already in place, and it is not better than option C. Flashcard 16. Which of the following DI training best practices is most likely to result in both increased awareness and behavioral changes? A. Mandate management attendance. B. Tailor the training to specific organizational challenges. C. Include diverse work groups. D. Hire a qualified facilitator. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Tailor the training to specific organizational challenges. The best answer is B, because training for adults in general is most effective when employees can relate it to their organization or job. Mandating management attendance may increase their awareness of the issues, as will having a diverse workforce in attendance. C. Hiring a qualified facilitator will support awareness initiatives but be most beneficial toward changing behaviors if the training is specific. Flashcard 17. Of the following labor force population, which is the least represented in management positions? A. Black or African American women. B. Asian women. C. Hispanic women. D. White women. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Asian women. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Asian women represent 8.6% of management roles within organizations, compared with 9.7% of Black or African American women, 10.4% Hispanic women, and 78.7% of white women. Flashcard 18. Which of the following elements should be included in a written plan designed to increase inclusivity of transgendered people at work? A. Guidelines for restroom access. B. Guidelines for pronoun use. C. How to report harassing or abusive conduct. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. It a best practice for heart rate to have separate, written guidelines for the transgendered community since there are specific issues that need to be addressed. These include the use of pronouns, restroom access, and how to report abusive conduct. Flashcard 19. A female applicant came in and interviewed with a supervisor for a front desk position at your organization. She had recently been laid off from a similar role due to her former company downsizing. After the interview, the supervisor hesitated to make her a job offer because she was wearing a hijab, and the supervisor was worried that customers coming into the facility would be made uncomfortable. Which of the following statements is true? A. The supervisor unlawfully discriminated against the applicant. B. The company can claim a BFOC exists, and thus the applicant is not qualified. C. Heart rate should find a different reason why the applicant is not qualified for the role. D. Heart rate should coach the leader to understand how stereotypes and concerns about customer preferences is a type of discrimination and not related to the job. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Heart rate should coach the leader to understand how stereotypes and concerns about customer preferences is a type of discrimination and not related to the job. Educating leaders and managers is an integral part of any company's DEI initiatives, and employees at all levels need to have a safe place to learn and develop new behaviors, so D is the best answer. Option A is not the best answer because the applicant had not yet been rejected based on her religious attire. Option B is incorrect. The question does not tell us what type of company she applied to, and thus we don't know if attire is a bona fide occupational qualification. Option C is unethical, and it does not promote a culture of diversity and inclusion. Flashcard 20. Which of the following statements best represents the advocacy role of heart rate for DEI initiatives? A heart rate facilitates and leads diversity awareness training. B. Heart rate champions the initiatives by working with internal and external stakeholders. C. Heart rate ensures that heart rate systems support company DEI initiatives. D. Heart rate models inclusive behaviors to all employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Heart rate ensures that heart rate systems support company DEI initiatives. Fundamental to the advocacy role for heart rate professionals is designing, implementing, and auditing heart rate systems to ensure that they support DEI initiatives, making C the best answer. Heart rate may not be the most qualified to lead diversity training or to represent the company's DEI initiatives, making A and B incorrect. Option D is correct in that heart rate should be modeling proper behaviors in all ways, but C better represents how heart rate can support DEI efforts operationally. Flashcard 21. An heart rate director wants to reduce turnover in a department with high dissatisfaction. Employees report low pay, poor working conditions, and outdated policies. According to Herzberg's model, what should the heart rate director prioritize first? A. Increase recognition and achievement opportunities. B. Address hygiene factors such as pay and working conditions. C. Provide more training and career growth opportunities. D. Create specific and challenging performance goals. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Address hygiene factors such as pay and working conditions. Flashcard 22. According to goal-setting theory, which type of goals are most effective in driving performance? A. Broad and general goals. B. Easy-to-achieve goals. C. Specific and challenging goals. D. Vague goals that allow for flexibility. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Specific and challenging goals. Flashcard 23. Attribution theory focuses on how individuals A. Perceive fairness in the workplace. B. Develop self-determination. C. Balance intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. D. Attribute causes to successes or failures. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Attribute causes to successes or failures. Flashcard 24. During a performance review, an employee shares they no longer feel motivated because promotions are rare and rewards don't seem tied to effort. Which part of expectancy theory is most directly weakened in this scenario? A. Instrumentality belief that performance leads to outcomes. B. Expectancy belief that effort leads to performance. C. Valence value placed on the outcome. D. Equity fairness of inputs and outcomes. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Instrumentality belief that performance leads to outcomes. Flashcard 25. Equity theory suggests that employees evaluate fairness by comparing A. Hygiene and motivator factors. B. Inputs and outcomes relative to others. C. Rewards to internal goals. D. Job satisfaction and performance levels. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Inputs and outcomes relative to others. Flashcard 26. A company introduces a policy that allows employees to design their own work schedules, take on stretch assignments, and participate in cross-functional projects. Which element of self-determination theory is primarily being supported? A. Autonomy. B. Hygiene factors. C. Attribution. D. Equity. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Autonomy. Flashcard 27. In Herzberg's two-factor theory, which of the following is an example of a hygiene factor? A. Achievement. B. Recognition. C. Salary. D. Responsibility. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Salary. Flashcard 28. Which of the following is not one of the three psychological needs in self-determination theory? A. Autonomy. B. Competence. C. Relatedness. D. Equity. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Equity. Flashcard 29. and heart rate manager notices that a team's performance has plateaued. The current goals are broad, such as improve communication and do your best. To better align with goal-setting theory, what should the heart rate manager do? A. Allow employees to create goals without oversight. B. Replace the goals with very easy ones to boost morale. C. Set specific, measurable, and challenging goals with clear deadlines. D. Focus only on intrinsic motivators such as recognition. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Set specific, measurable, and challenging goals with clear deadlines. Flashcard 30. Expectancy theory explains motivation as a function of A. The relationship between effort, performance, and rewards. B. Recognition of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. C. The distinction between hygiene and motivator factors. D. Equity and fairness in outcomes. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. The relationship between effort, performance, and rewards. Flashcard 31. A manager assigns responsibility for a new project, but retains all decision-making authority. Employees feel frustrated and unclear about their ownership. Based on effective delegating techniques, what adjustment should the manager make? A. Rotate project leaders weekly. B. Offer financial incentives instead of responsibility. C. Provide clear authority along with responsibility. D. Increase direct supervision of tasks. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Provide clear authority along with responsibility. Flashcard 32. Which of the following best captures the essence of risk-taking as a leadership quality? A. Always avoiding potential failure to protect resources. B. Making bold decisions, accepting calculated risks, and learning from failure. C. Ignoring organizational strategy in pursuit of new ideas. D. Depending solely on others to innovate and adapt. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Making bold decisions, accepting calculated risks, and learning from failure. Flashcard 33. Visionary leaders primarily A. Align team efforts with organizational mission and inspire through purpose. B. Emphasize control over inspiration. C. Avoid communicating direction to reduce confusion. D. Focus on short-term task completion. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Align team efforts with organizational mission and inspire through purpose. Flashcard 34. Which of the following reflects leading by example? A. Delegating without providing authority. B. Relying on emotional appeals to drive decisions. C. Modeling the standards and behaviors you expect from others. D. Using only financial incentives to gain compliance. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Modeling the standards and behaviors you expect from others. Flashcard 35. An heart rate business partner notices an employee struggling with time management. Rather than directing tasks, the HRBP asks open-ended questions and helps the employee explore their own solutions. Which technique is being applied? A. Delegating. B. Supporting. C. Coaching. D. Directing. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Coaching. Flashcard 36. What does continuous learning primarily involve for heart rate professionals? A. Relying only on formal education completed years ago. B. Delegating development responsibilities to employees only. C. Regularly seeking knowledge, updating skills, and adapting practices. D. Avoiding new information to prevent overcomplication. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Regularly seeking knowledge, updating skills, and adapting practices. Flashcard 37. Which statement best reflects a leader with a growth mindset? A. My past mistakes prove I shouldn't take risks again. B. Skills can be developed through effort, feedback, and persistence. C. I don't want to try new things because I might fail. D. Leaders are born, not made, so development is unnecessary. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Skills can be developed through effort, feedback, and persistence. Flashcard 38. A new team of interns has joined the heart rate department. They lack knowledge of company policies and need step-by-step guidance. According to people management techniques, what approach should the heart rate supervisor use? A. Delegating to encourage autonomy immediately. B. Coaching to let interns find their own solution. C. Mentoring to focus on long-term career goals. D. Directing to provide specific instructions and close supervision. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Directing to provide specific instructions and close supervision. Flashcard 39. Which of the following is an example of rational persuasion? A. Appealing to emotions without evidence. B. Avoiding input and making unilateral decisions. C. Presenting data and logical arguments to justify a new heart rate policy. D. Using authority to demand compliance. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Presenting data and logical arguments to justify a new heart rate policy. Flashcard 40. An employee has the skills to perform their job but lacks confidence. Their supervisor spends time encouraging them and providing reassurance rather than detailed task instructions. Which management technique is being demonstrated? A. Directing. B. Coaching. C. Delegating. D. Supporting. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Supporting. Flashcard 41. Internal ethics controls in heart rate are primarily designed to A. Guarantee employee promotions. B. Increase short-term profitability. C. Reduce the role of heart rate in decision-making. D. Establish accountability and prevent misconduct. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Establish accountability and prevent misconduct. Flashcard 42. What is the primary purpose of heart rate privacy policies? A. To protect company reputation from external lawsuits. B. To allow unlimited access to employee data by managers. C. To define how employee data is collected, stored, and used responsibly. D. To encourage employees to share personal data widely. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. To define how employee data is collected, stored, and used responsibly. Flashcard 43. Which practice best upholds employee confidentiality in workplace investigations? A. Sharing all details with every manager for transparency. B. Limiting access to sensitive information strictly to those who need to know. C. Allowing peers to review investigation notes for fairness. D. Posting investigation outcomes on the company intranet. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Limiting access to sensitive information strictly to those who need to know. Flashcard 44. An heart rate manager introduces a new performance review system. To build trust, what action best demonstrates transparency? A. Share how ratings are determined and how the data will be used. B. Implement the system without explanation to ensure neutrality. C. Only disclose the process to senior leaders. D. Keep details vague to maintain flexibility. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Share how ratings are determined and how the data will be used. Flashcard 45. An heart rate manager is asked to serve on the hiring panel for a position where their close relative is an applicant. What is the most ethical action? A. Keep the relationship private to avoid unnecessary attention. B. Allow the relative to proceed but provide coaching before the interview. C. Fully disclose the relationship and recuse themselves from the process. D. Participate but abstain from voting at the end. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Allow the relative to proceed but provide coaching before the interview. Flashcard 46. Authentic heart rate leaders primarily A. Focus exclusively on compliance with legal standards. B. Hide personal values to maintain neutrality. C. Align words and actions demonstrating consistency and honesty. D. Defer all ethical decisions to senior executives. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Align words and actions, demonstrating consistency and honesty. Flashcard 47. An heart rate team is conducting a workplace harassment investigation. To ensure ethical practice, what should they prioritize? A. Neutrality, fairness, and consistent procedures. B. Speed over thoroughness to reduce disruption. C. Accepting anonymous rumors as evidence. D. Sharing all updates with the entire staff for transparency. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Neutrality, fairness, and consistent procedures. Flashcard 48. Which of the following best illustrates an opt-in privacy policy? A. Data is shared across departments by default. B. Employees provide explicit consent before their personal data is used. C. Employees are automatically enrolled in data sharing unless they refuse. D. Consent is assumed for all new hires. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Employees provide explicit consent before their personal data is used. Flashcard 49. A benefits vendor offers an heart rate director free tickets to a major sporting event while contract negotiations are underway. Which action reflects ethical heart rate leadership? A. Accept the tickets but disclose them afterward. B. Transfer the tickets to another employee without disclosure. C. Accept the tickets if no one finds out. D. Politely decline the gift to avoid a conflict of interest. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Politely decline the gift to avoid a conflict of interest. Flashcard 50. Which of the following is not typically considered a foundation of ethical business practices in heart rate? A. Compliance. B. Profit maximization. C. Fairness. D. Respect. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Profit maximization. Flashcard 51. Which of the following is a key benefit of having a multicultural and multilingual workforce? A. Ensures all employees share the same cultural values. B. Eliminates the need for training in cultural competencies. C. Reduces language barriers and enhances communication effectiveness. D. Prevents the need for translation technology. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Reduces language barriers and enhances communication effectiveness. Flashcard 52. An heart rate leader wants to assess employee perceptions of inclusivity and respect in the workplace. Which tool would best support this effort? A. Financial audits to track pay data. B. Mandatory arbitration agreements. C. Succession planning for senior leaders. D. Employee surveys designed to measure inclusion and equity. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Employee surveys designed to measure inclusion and equity. Flashcard 53. A company hires diverse entry-level staff but has very limited representation at the executive level. What action would best address this imbalance? A. Focus recruitment and leadership development programs on underrepresented groups. B. Publish diversity statistics without changing recruitment strategies. C. Maintain the current structure, as entry-level diversity is sufficient. D. Eliminate all diversity goals to ensure neutrality. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Focus recruitment and leadership development programs on underrepresented groups. Flashcard 54. Why is it important for organizations to embrace a multigenerational workforce? A. To leverage different experiences and perspectives across age groups. B. To ensure that one generation dominates leadership positions. C. To increase turnover and change job structures more frequently. D. To limit the diversity of thought and decision-making. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To leverage different experiences and perspectives across age groups. Flashcard 55. A hiring manager unintentionally favors candidates who attended the same university they did, despite no job-related criteria requiring it. Which type of bias does this demonstrate? A. Systemic bias. B. Explicit bias. C. Unconscious bias. D. Conscious bias. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Unconscious bias. Flashcard 56. The SHRM Empathy Index is primarily used to A. Benchmark compensation practices across industries. B. Track workforce demographics by race and gender. C. Evaluate leadership and culture on empathy to improve engagement. D. Measure compliance with federal diversity laws. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Evaluate leadership and culture on empathy to improve engagement. Flashcard 57. Why is representation at all organizational levels critical for inclusion? A. It guarantees compliance with every federal regulation. B. It ensures that only middle managers benefit from training. C. It encourages innovation and improves quality of decision-making. D. It is primarily symbolic and has no practical impact. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. It encourages innovation and improves quality of decision-making. Flashcard 58. What is the primary purpose of conducting pay audits and publishing equity reports? A. To identify and address disparities in compensation across groups. B. To ensure compliance with antitrust laws. C. To highlight individual employee salaries for comparison. D. To monitor employee attendance and performance. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To identify and address disparities in compensation across groups. Flashcard 59. An heart rate manager knowingly avoids assigning high-profile projects to women because they might leave for family reasons. This situation is an example of A. Conscious bias. B. Systemic discrimination only. C. Cultural competency. D. Unconscious bias. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Conscious bias. Flashcard 60. Inclusion and diversity I&D metrics are most valuable to organizations because they A. Ensure diversity without any changes in policies. B. Focus only on cultural celebrations rather than systemic change. C. Eliminate the need for employee feedback. D. Provide measurable data to track progress and accountability. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Provide measurable data to track progress and accountability. Flashcard 61. Which of the following intervention strategies would work best for an employee who had low engagement with their job? A. Offer training. B. Place them on a performance improvement plan. C. Have a conversation with them about career development. D. Engage a coach or mentor. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Have a conversation with them about career development. Finding ways to engage team members with their work is part of the role of heart rate. Once a clear career path has been identified, other intervention strategies such as training or coaching may be considered. Flashcard 62. Which of the following is an equity challenge for performance management systems? A. Lack of supervisor training. B. Lack of efficacy. C. Being tied to pay increases. D. How time-consuming they are to complete. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Lack of supervisor training. Many organizations rely on their managers and supervisors to complete performance appraisals. If steps are not taken to properly train the raters, bias is introduced that has a disproportionate effect on individuals. Flashcard 63. Which of the following is the best example of a team in the workplace? A. Individuals who work for the same organization. B. Individuals who report to the same boss. C. Individuals who share responsibilities. D. Individuals who work in the same department. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Individuals who share responsibilities. Teams and workgroups are best defined through shared responsibilities or outputs. Flashcard 64. Which of the following examples best represents an organization that competes using knowledge as a core competency? A. A people analytics corporation. B. A staffing agency. C. An automobile manufacturing company. D. A financial services company. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. A financial services company. Knowledge as a core competency relies on employees who are subject matter experts in their field. Flashcard 65. Which of the following is necessary for an internship to be legal? A. The intern's effort cannot materially produce the work of a paid employee. B. The intern must agree in writing that the work will be unpaid. C. The work must be tied to the student's field of study. D. The student must come from an accredited college or university. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. The work must be tied to the student's field of study. When structured properly, internships have positive outcomes for the employer and the student. Key to these outcomes is compliance with various laws, and so the work performed by the intern must complement the student's field of study. Flashcard 66. You manage heart rate for a large employer that has just broke ground on their first global facility, which will be operational within the next 2 years. The national cultures are significantly different, as are the host country labor laws. Which of the following heart rate service models should you recommend? A. Centralized. B. Decentralized. C. Offshoring. D. Outsourcing. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Decentralized. A decentralized heart rate service model allows for tie to corporate headquarters while maintaining cultures and compliance with labor laws within the host country. Flashcard 67. Which of the following heart rate metrics is used to establish the department's annual budget? A heart rate expense to revenue. B. Revenue per FTE. C. Return on investment. D. A balanced scorecard. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a heart rate expense to revenue. The heart rate expense to revenue ratio is used to identify the costs associated with heart rate activities within the context of annual revenue and is used to set the heart rate department's budget. Flashcard 68. Which of the following statements about the primary purpose of employee handbooks is true? A. Handbooks are required by various labor laws. B. Handbooks are used to communicate the expected standards of employee behaviors. C. Handbooks are used to help employers manage risk. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Handbooks are used to communicate the expected standards of employee behaviors. The primary purpose of an employee handbook is to communicate employment rights and responsibilities, including the expected standards of behavior. They are often used to demonstrate compliance with labor laws. However, they are not explicitly required. Flashcard 69. The behavioral competencies required of a human resource professional is best described by which of the following? A heart rate professionals must be active listeners to understand needs. B. Heart rate professionals must be competent in their work. C. Heart rate professionals must be geared toward taking action. D. Heart rate professionals must be highly educated. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Heart rate professionals must be geared toward taking action. Behavioral competencies are what an heart rate professional does in their role, how they behave, and the actions they take to align heart rate strategy with business strategy. Flashcard 70. Which of the following best describes the value of heart rate networking? A. Networking builds relationships that may be mutually beneficial. B. Networking helps create a pipeline of talent from which to recruit. C. Networking identifies best heart rate practices from which to draw upon. D. Networking is an effective way to socialize with like-minded individuals. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Networking builds relationships that may be mutually beneficial. Networking as an heart rate competency provides value in many ways, all through developing relationships. These relationships often lead to mutually beneficial outcomes such as recruiting, learning and development, and socializing with like-minded individuals. Flashcard 71. Of the 4 dimensions of diversity, where does a person's religion and age belong? A. Demographics. B. Organizational. C. Internal and external. D. Personality. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Internal and external Garden-Swartz and Rowe defined internal dimensions of diversity as factors such as age, health, and national origin, as well as external factors such as religion, education, and income. Flashcard 72. Which of the following represent a demographic barrier to success? A. Transgenderism. B. Age. C. Religion. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. Demographic barriers to success are diversity factors that, when unmanaged, result in underrepresentation of groups based on sexual orientation, age, religion, national origin, and mental health, just to name a few. Flashcard 73. What is the age group identified for protection under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act (ADIA)? A. Individuals over the age of 40. B. Individuals over the age of 50. C. Individuals over the age of 60. D. Individuals over the age of 65. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Individuals over the age of 40. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act protects individuals over the age of 40. Flashcard 74. Which of the following statements regarding the failing of diversity initiatives is true for most organizations? A. Most fail because there continues to be systemic racial and other bias in the workplace. B. Many fail for the same reasons most business strategy fails, including lack of resource and leadership commitment. C. Many fail because organizations do not understand the true value of diversity at work. D. Most fail because heart rate teams themselves lack diversity. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Many fail for the same reasons most business strategy fails, including lack of resource and leadership commitment. Diversity and inclusion as a business strategy leads to many positive outcomes. As with any strategic initiative, many fail due to lack of adequate resource and/or leadership commitment. Flashcard 75. Why do individuals with high STEM skills self-select into routine work? A. They tend to have lower social skills. B. They are smart enough to navigate complex technology. C. There is an abundance of routine jobs within the United States that drives employment patterns. D. There are not enough non-routine jobs to keep people employed. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. They tend to have lower social skills. David Deeming of Harvard University noted that individuals self-select into roles that are best suited to their natural skills. Individuals with lower social skills such as teamwork and collaboration, but high technical skills such as those found in science, technology, engineering, and math STEM are more likely to work in routine roles. This is significant because as more U.S. jobs become non-routine, heart rate will need to help employees develop their social skills. Flashcard 76. Which of the following data collection methods would be most useful to understand how employees perceive their company's pay practices? A. Conduct online research to see what competitors are paying. B. Purchase an external salary survey. C. Conduct an employee survey. D. Use an online service such as salary.com. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Conduct an employee survey. Using employee surveys can help heart rate teams gather data related to pay practices, including satisfaction and perceptions of fairness, factors that influence retention. Flashcard 77. What was the primary outcome from the Lilly-Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009? A. The filing period for a claim of wage discrimination resets with every pay period. B. Gender-based wage disparity is a form of unlawful discrimination. C. Employers must pay jobs of comparable worth equally. D. Nothing. Lilly-Ledbetter lost her case against her employer. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. The filing period for a claim of wage discrimination resets with every pay period. Although Lilly-Ledbetter did lose her claim of wage discrimination against her employer, she inspired the act establishing that the filing period for a claim of wage discrimination resets with every pay period. Flashcard 78. Blank plans focus on keeping critical operations running in the event of an emergency. A. Injury and illness. B. Risk management. C. Emergency response. D. Business continuity. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Business continuity. Heart rate is responsible for leading the effort in developing business continuity and other disaster preparedness plans. These plans are focused on continuing critical operations in the event of an emergency. Flashcard 79. What is the primary difference between corporate governance and corporate citizenship? A. Governance is focused on sustainability, whereas citizenship is focused on compliance. B. Governance is focused on social responsibility, whereas citizenship is focused on risk management. C. Governance is focused on compliance, whereas citizenship is focused on sustainability. D. Governance applies only to corporations, whereas citizenship applies to all businesses. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Governance is focused on compliance, whereas citizenship is focused on sustainability. Corporate governance is a risk management practice that focuses on compliance with business laws. Corporate citizenship is part of corporate social responsibility initiatives such as sustainability and doing no harm to the environments in which a business operates. Flashcard 80. Which of the following is covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act? A. Employees who work interstate. B. Enterprises with at least 2 employees. C. Public agencies. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. The Fair Labor Standards Act applies to enterprises with 2 or more employees, to public agencies, and to employees who regularly work between states. Flashcard 81. As the recently hired heart rate manager at a 52-employee manufacturing company in South Carolina, you have discovered that separated employees are not being offered the option to continue healthcare after termination. Which labor law is the employer violating? A. HIPAA. B. COBRA. C. ERISA. D. OSHA. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. COBRA. The Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act (COBRA) was passed to ensure that employees who had healthcare coverage while employed have the option to continue healthcare coverage upon a qualifying event, such as termination. COBRA requires that the employer provide notification of this right at the time of separation. Flashcard 82. Which of the following is the most rapidly growing technology adoption for heart rate service delivery? A. Self-service. B. Mobile. C. Cloud. D. Global systems. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Cloud. Adoption rates for cloud technology is growing. This is because employers are moving more and more of their services online, requiring a change to how data is stored and secured. Flashcard 83. Which of the following is a best security practice for holding more online meetings at work? A. Making sure that the presentation materials are easily understood online. B. Focusing on high levels of engagement. C. Decreasing the number of meetings held online. D. Initiating meeting passcodes and waiting rooms. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Initiating meeting passcodes and waiting rooms. With the increased use of online meetings, there have been several security challenges. Heart rate works closely with IT and presenters to ensure that there are security protocols in place, such as requiring meeting passcodes and working with virtual waiting rooms. Flashcard 84. As the heart rate manager for a nonprofit organization that offers free tutoring and other educational resources to underserved communities, you have been tasked with identifying how many full-time volunteers are necessary to staff next week. Calculate the FTE ratio using the following data: 24 students per day, 60-minute sessions over a 5-day period. A 1.3 FTEs, B2 FTEs, C3 FTEs, D4 FTEs. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C3 FTEs. Full-time equivalent FTE is calculated by dividing the total workweek hours by 40 hours. In this example, the weekly work hours equals 120 hours, which, when divided by 40, equals 3 FTEs. Flashcard 85. Of the following, which would be the most effective action heart rate could take for employees who wish to use their own computer and mobile equipment at work or while remotely working? A. Consult with a labor attorney to identify risk. B. Develop a policy to establish guidelines of use. C. Ask senior leaders which technology they would prefer their teams use. D. Survey teams to see what they are already using. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Develop a policy to establish guidelines of use. Bring your own device. BYOD policies exist to help manage the risk that occurs when employees use their own laptops, cell phones, or home-based equipment. Flashcard 86. What is the fundamental principle in systems theory? A. That differentiation is necessary for overall organizational health. B. That all business units are interdependent and thus reliant on the health of all departments. C. That standard operating procedures throughout the organization are the key to efficient operations. D. That an organization is only as functional as its employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. That all business units are interdependent and thus reliant on the health of all departments. Key to the principles of systems theory is that organizational health is dependent on the health of each business unit, since all departments are interrelated. This means that what affects one department will likely have a ripple effect on others. Flashcard 87. Which of the following is an example of the T in the strategic analysis tool called SWOT? A. New labor laws. B. Lack of employee skills. C. A surplus of qualified talent. D. The automation of work. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. New labor laws. A SWOT analysis is used in the strategic planning process to scan the internal environment for internal strengths and weaknesses, and external opportunities and threats. The rise of new labor laws each year is an external condition that may threaten organizational competitiveness. Flashcard 88. Which of the following is a major barrier to aligning talent acquisition strategies with an organization's strategic plan? A. The shortage of qualified workers in the labor market. B. The rise of automation that is changing the way work is getting done. C. Applicant tracking systems that are inefficient. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. There are many conditions that affect the ability of heart rate professionals to align talent plans with strategic plans. These include a labor supply and demand factors, technological advances that change the way work is structured, and outdated applicant tracking programs that do not adequately support the talent acquisition process. Flashcard 89. Which of the following best demonstrates an heart rate commitment to becoming an employer of choice within your local marketplace? A. Accepting job interest cards for continuous recruitment of certain roles. B. Partnering with local schools to run resume and other career-building workshops. C. Using social media to communicate the employer values. D. Paying above market wages. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Using social media to communicate the employer values. Becoming an employer of choice includes many facets that go beyond wages and benefits. This includes messaging related to an employer purpose and what it values, components that create the company's identity. Flashcard 90. What is the primary risk of having a disengaged workforce? A. Counterproductive work behaviors. B. High turnover. C. Low productivity. D. Low employee morale. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. High turnover. The primary risk of a disengaged workforce is the cost of high turnover, often calculated at approximately 1.5 times an employee's base pay. Additionally, churn will lower organizational productivity and can lead to low morale. Flashcard 91. Which of the following is an example of learning and development support of an individual during the employee life cycle? A. Employee assistance programs to address mental health issues. B. Long-term onboarding plans. C. Performance-based pay. D. Career pathing. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Career pathing. Supporting individuals throughout the entire life cycle is a major part of the role of human resources. This can be done within each of the functional areas of heart rate, such as total rewards, the selection process, and learning and development. Career pathing is an example of supporting an employee's skills as they grow within the organization. Flashcard 92. What is the primary difference between basic skills and cross-functional skills? A. Basic skills are those the employee uses to perform their own work, whereas cross-functional skills are those that are used in multiple jobs. B. Basic skills are those that help employees learn new skills, whereas cross-functional skills facilitate performance across jobs. C. Basic skills are those that demonstrate aptitude for learning, whereas cross-functional skills are those that require both knowledge and skill to perform. D. There is no difference between basic and cross-functional skills. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Basic skills are those that help employees learn new skills, whereas cross-functional skills facilitate performance across jobs. The Department of Labor describes basic skills as those that facilitate learning, such as language skills. Cross-functional skills are those that can be used across different jobs, such as typing or phone skills. Flashcard 93. Measurable training objectives are established at which phase of the ADDIE model? A. Analyze. B. Design. C. Develop. D. Evaluate. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Design. The ADDIE model is used in instructional design and consists of analyzing training needs, designing objectives, developing content, implementing the training, and then evaluating results. Flashcard 94. Which of the following is an example of the job evaluation process? A. An heart rate employee observing workers performing their job tasks. B. An heart rate employee interviewing an employee about their work tasks. C. An heart rate employee pricing jobs according to their relative worth. D. An heart rate employee conducting a market wage analysis. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. An heart rate employee pricing jobs according to their relative worth. According to SHRM Glossary of Terms, the job evaluation process consists of determining a job's value and price by comparing the job against other jobs within the organization or against similar jobs in competing organizations. Flashcard 95. Why is it important for an heart rate professional to understand financial reports such as the cash flow statement? A. To ensure the company can meet its payroll obligation. B. To understand the relative cost of labor in comparison with other financial metrics. C. To manage heart rate-related expenses and spending, such as recruiting and training. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To ensure the company can meet its payroll obligation. The competencies of an heart rate business partner extend beyond the practice of human resources. A cash flow statement is a report of liquidity and the ability of an employer to meet its obligations. Understanding financial reports such as the cash flow statement is a part of being a valued, credible partner. Flashcard 96. The company you work for has made the strategic decision to move part of its operations to India. You have been notified that the staffing will begin once the new facility has been built, which could take up to 18 months. This is an example of which of the following? A. A brownfield structure. B. A greenfield operation. C. A turnkey operation. D. Outsourcing. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. A greenfield operation. There are many options for structuring a multinational enterprise. A greenfield operation is one where the facilities are built from the ground up. Flashcard 97. Which of the following is an example of an ethnocentric staffing strategy? A. Anemone staffs management roles with expatriates. B. Anemone staffs management roles with regional talent. C. Anemone staffs all roles from the host country. D. Anemone staffs all roles with home country nationals. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Anemone staffs management roles with expatriates. An ethnocentric staffing strategy is one where jobs are staffed with host country individuals. Flashcard 98. The organization you work for is struggling to retain a diverse workforce. Exit interviews aren't proving adequate information to understand why these employees are leaving. Which of the following actions should you engage in first to understand the root cause of the retention problem? A. Interview existing employees and ask them what they believe is going on. B. Host a focus group with diverse individuals to gather feedback. C. Send out an anonymous survey asking about diversity and inclusion in their work groups. D. Hire a consultant to come in and conduct diversity training. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Send out an anonymous survey asking about diversity and inclusion in their work groups. Asking employees to share their experiences and insights related to diversity and inclusion is a strong first step when designing a diversity initiative. Allowing the surveys to be anonymous encourages more honest feedback at this stage of the process. Flashcard 99. Which of the following is an example of heart rate advocating for DEI initiatives in the workplace? A. Lobbying for equal rights through the justice system. B. Making a business case to senior leaders showing that a diverse workforce drives organizational performance. C. Focusing diversity efforts on the recruitment and selection stage of the employee life cycle. D. Implementing a voluntary affirmative action program. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Making a business case to senior leaders showing that a diverse workforce drives organizational performance. Advocating for diversity and inclusion in the workplace occurs at the individual, group, and organizational levels. One way to achieve this is to make the business case to senior leaders for diversity, and then aligning heart rate practices with business strategy to demonstrate the full value of the effort. Flashcard 100. Which of the following workplace-related injuries must be recorded on the OSHA 300 log? A. An individual was stung by a bee during a company picnic that was held on company property and uses their prescribed steroid injection pen to control an immediate allergic reaction. B. A fully remote worker trips at home during their lunch break and is taken off work for 3 days to recover. C. An individual is exposed to an infectious disease at work and is required to quarantine. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. An individual was stung by a bee during a company picnic that was held on company property and uses their prescribed steroid injection pen to control an immediate allergic reaction. Most employee injuries that are sustained as the result of participating in a work event are recordable on the OSHA 300 log, including bee stings. For teleworkers, the same rules apply for recording other cases, such as an injury is work-related if it occurred while an employee was being paid to work or develops a confirmed illness as the result of exposure at work. Flashcard 101. Your employer's workers' compensation insurance company has a lump sum award schedule for an employee who loses a specific body part in a work-related injury. The calculation includes the type of injury, the details of the loss, and the amount of lost earnings potential over time. This is an example of which of the following? A. Single loss expectancy. B. Annual loss expectancy. C. Qualitative analysis. D. Quantitative analysis. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis applies facts, statistics, and historical data to make business decisions. In this scenario, the insurance company is using predictive analytics and specific individual factors to determine the value of the loss of the body part. Flashcard 102. In some countries, bribery and corruption are a normal and acceptable way of doing business. This is an example of which pestle force at work? A. Political. B. Economic. C. Social. D. Legal. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Political. Business practices vary from country to country, and they are often tied to the political environment and the subsequent regulations. It is heart rate's responsibility within a multinational enterprise to ensure that their own practices remain ethical and do not harm the countries where they have operations. Flashcard 103. Emissions, climate change, and overpopulation are all examples of which of the following corporate social responsibility CSR initiatives? A. People. B. Planet. C. Social. D. Political. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Planet. Properly structuring corporate social responsibility targets is part of building sustainable practices. These targets may be toward people or environmental issues that affect the planet. Flashcard 104. The Americans with Disabilities Act applies to employers with blank or more employees. A 5B10C15D20. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C-15. The Americans with Disabilities Act applies to employers with 15 or more employees. Flashcard 105. Which of the following is an example of an unlawful union security clause? A. A union shop. B. A closed shop. C. Featherbedding. D. Secondary boycotts. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. A closed shop. Union security clauses are those that support and sustain union membership. A closed shop is a condition of employment that requires individuals to join a union as a condition of employment. Closed shops are unlawful. Flashcard 106. For which of the following positions may a lie detector test be lawful? A. A pharmacist. B. A retail clerk at a cannabis shop. C. A driver of a vehicle that picks up and drops off cash. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. Lie detector tests are generally lawful for positions in security and for roles where drugs are being handled. Flashcard 107. Which of the following acts was designed to prohibit insurance companies from excluding pre-existing conditions from coverage? A. HIPAA. B. COBRA. C. ERISA. D. PPACA. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. HIPAA. In addition to improving medical privacy, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act HIPAA was designed to improve the portability of coverage when individuals change jobs. Flashcard 108. Risk, senior leader burnout, and the complexity of the ever-changing legal environment are all examples of which of the following? A. Pestle forces in risk management. B. Justification of the cost of a labor attorney. C. The complexity of the regulatory environment. D. Reasons why organizations should staff an heart rate department. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Reasons why organizations should staff an heart rate department. Many small organizations practice heart rate in an ad hoc fashion, meaning recruiting, training, safety, compensation, and other heart rate functions are managed by supervisors and senior leaders. Staffing an heart rate department helps to manage risk, allows senior leaders to focus on strategy and can reduce stress, and provides guidance when navigating the complex legal environment of employment. Flashcard 109. For which of the following employers would a centralized heart rate service model make the most sense? A. For employers with 500 or more employees. B. For organizations operating in multiple states. C. For larger, globally operated organizations. D. For employers with fewer than 500 employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. For employers with fewer than 500 employees. Smaller organizations can benefit from a centralized structure, which is one where heart rate teams are headquartered and service a single or a few locations. Flashcard 110. Which of the following is a specific way to quantifiably measure heart rate performance? A. Cost benefit. B. ROIC. KPI. D. A balanced scorecard. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. KPI is a key performance indicator. KPI is a specific, quantifiable measure of performance. Flashcard 111. The employees at your current place of work are frustrated. During the pandemic, they were allowed to work remotely with much success. Now that the pandemic is over, your employer is telling them that telework is not an option and that it is non-negotiable. Which of the following will most likely ease some of the team members' frustration? A. Bring the teams together and ask them to identify a hybrid solution. B. Talk to your senior leaders and justify a shift from on-site to permanent work from home solutions. C. Explain to the employees why their work needs to be done on-site. D. Do nothing. It is better to let things settle down and get back to normal. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Explain to the employees why their work needs to be done on-site. When managing change, it is important for adults to understand the why behind what they are being scheduled to do. Clearly outlining the reasons for the work being done on-site can help employees adjust/readjust to being back at work. Flashcard 112. Which of the following tools will most likely aid in building self-awareness, and helping teams learn to communicate more effectively with each other. A. AI training. B. Personality assessment. C. Diversity training. D. Self-directed team structure. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Personality assessments. Personality assessments help increase an employee's self-awareness in areas such as energy, orientation, social skills, communication, and decision-making and problem-solving styles. By conducting individual and team assessments, groups can learn how to work more effectively together. Flashcard 113. Which of the following is the most important factor of workforce planning? A. Alignment with business strategy. B. Factoring in the need for upskilling. C. Supporting all business operations. D. Mitigating risks associated with having employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Alignment with business strategy. The most important facet of the design of heart rate activities and plans is the degree to which it is integrated and aligned with business strategy. This integration will support business operations through enterprise risk management and staffing strategies that meet current and future needs. Flashcard 114. Knowledge management is a n-blank process. This is so that a baseline is established and can be built upon as new knowledge is gained and shared. A. Creative. B. Infinite. C. Continuous. D. Iterative. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Iterative. Knowledge management is an iterative process that builds upon itself as new knowledge is gained. Flashcard 115. Which theory of leadership is rooted in the concept that the quality of the relationship between a manager and the employee has the greatest effect on trust and other positive outcomes? A. Motivation/hygiene. B. Theory X. Theory Y. C. LMX. D. Operant conditioning. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. LMX. The leader-member exchange. LMX theory of leadership states that the dynamic between a manager and an employee creates in-groups and out-groups. In-groups have more trust from the leader and trust their leader in return. In-groups are generally more productive and experience greater levels of job satisfaction. Flashcard 116. In terms of employee development, which of the following tools may be used to great effect to retain high-potential employees? A. Stay bonuses. B. Succession planning. C. Pay for performance. D. Replacement planning. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Succession planning. When employees, especially high-potential employees, have a clear line of sight on their career trajectory, they are more likely to stay with an organization. For this reason, succession planning is a useful tool used to develop and retain these workers. Flashcard 117. Which of the following statements are true regarding non-compete agreements? A. Non-compete agreements protect both the employer and the employee from litigation. B. Non-compete agreements protect employees from theft of company property claims from employers. C. Non-compete agreements are illegal. D. Non-compete agreements are generally unenforceable. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Non-compete agreements are generally unenforceable. Non-compete agreements restrict the rights of exiting employees to go to work for a competitor. They are generally unenforceable as no entity has the right to prohibit an individual from using their skills to make a living. Flashcard 118. What is the primary reason for employers to have an employee handbook? A. To communicate the rights and responsibilities of both the employer and employee. B. Because employee handbooks are required by law. C. To organize the policies that affect the employment relationship. D. To document the code of behavioral conduct expected from employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To communicate the rights and responsibilities of both the employer and employee. An employee handbook is primarily a tool used by employers to communicate the rights and responsibilities that exist for both the employer and employee. They also serve as a way to organize the various policies that are required by law and to communicate standards of employee behavior. Flashcard 119. Which of the following statements about alternative dispute resolution ADR methods is true? A. ADR is generally used to guide disputes between an employer and a union. B. Not all ADR methods are binding. C. ADR may only be used by public employers. D. A new hire may not refuse to sign an ADR agreement. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Not all ADR methods are binding. Alternative dispute resolution methods are used when both parties agree to resolve employment disputes using arbitration, mediation, or some other third party to settle an employment dispute. Arbitration may be binding or non-binding, whereas mediation is not binding. Flashcard 120. Which of the following is the most effective way for companies to protect their intellectual property rights? A. File a patent or a trademark. B. Sue competitors that steal their ideas. C. Require employees to sign non-disclosure agreements. D. Track customers that are violating terms and conditions of product use and notify them that they need to stop. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. File a patent or a trademark. The best answer is to advise leaders to file a patent or trademark over their intellectual property. This is a proactive approach that helps to prevent the need for litigation or other more assertive methods to protect the property. Flashcard 121. Concerted activity is form of blank action that is protected by the National Labor Relations Board. A. Striking. B. Lawful. C. Opt. D. Collective. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Collective. Concerted protective activity is a form of collective action by employees when organizing or deciding to organize a union. It is protected under the National Labor Relations Act and enforced by the National Labor Relations Board. Flashcard 122. When negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, which of the following are mandated subjects? A. Wages. B. Hours. C. Working conditions. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. The National Labor Relations Act requires that both unions and the employer bargain in good faith over issues related to wages, hours, and working conditions. Flashcard 123. Which of the following is an example of the most effective use of employee self-service (ESS) programs? A. For administrative tasks such as changing an address. B. For employees to complete self-assessments. C. For employees to select benefits during open enrollment. D. To access employee surveys. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. For employees to select benefits during open enrollment. Employee self-service systems should provide maximum value to both the employee and the organizations. For this reason, training employees on how to update benefits selection during open enrollment is an effective use of this technology, as it frees up heart rate teams from heavy data entry so they are available to answer the more complex questions that can arise during open enrollment. Flashcard 124. Which of the following refers to the ability of a technological framework to deliver an automated service, such as employee access to an online portal? A. Latency. B. Runway. C. Capacity. D. Bandwidth. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Capacity. Capacity refers to the ability of a technological system to complete an operation. It is different from latency, which refers to the lag time between a request and the delivery. Both are important considerations when automating heart rate and other services. Flashcard 125. As an heart rate manager for an employer with more than 200,000 employees, you have been tasked with finding a way to adequately measure and compare candidates for a leadership pipeline. Selected employees will be placed in a fast-track development program, and the process is expected to be highly competitive and conducted on a national scale. Which of the following selection solutions would make the process equitable, while at the same time streamlining the selection process? A. Hire a consultant to oversee the project. B. Use an executive search firm to qualify the candidates. C. Engage an assessment center to design the selection tests. D. Ask managers to nominate employees for the pipeline and follow the normal selection procedures. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Engage an assessment center to design the selection tests. An assessment center is a series of pre-employment tests developed by professionals to assess and compare candidates. In this scenario, the series can be administered by a national third party to minimize bias and streamline the large project. Flashcard 126. Which of the following is a representation of a Likert system in performance appraisals? A. When managers must provide specific examples of negative and positive employee performance. B. When managers are asked to compare employees using a bell curve. C. When managers are asked to rate employees on a scale of 1-5. D. When employees are asked to complete a self-assessment. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. When managers are asked to rate employees on a scale of 1-5. A Likert scale is one of the most common methods used when rating employee performance. It is simple in that managers are asked to rate an employee on a scale, such as 1-5, in specific performance areas such as productivity or interpersonal skills. Flashcard 127. A female expatriate who has been on an international assignment for the last 3 years recently applied for a promotion. The role would require that she supervise men. Because the country's laws forbid this practice, the expatriate is denied the promotion. Which of the following statements is true? A. The employee was the victim of unlawful discrimination because she is protected by U.S. labor laws. B. The denial of the promotion is protected under the foreign law defense, which allows cultural norms to supersede U.S. discrimination laws. C. The employee was rightfully denied the promotion because in this case, gender was a bona fide occupational qualification. BFOC. D. The employee will most likely resign and the organization will lose a valuable expatriate team member. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. The denial of the promotion is protected under the foreign law defense, which allows cultural norms to supersede U.S. discrimination laws. The foreign law defense protects employers who act contrary to home country laws when doing so would violate the laws of a host country. Flashcard 128. An employee recently notified Heart Rate that they were undergoing gender reassignment surgery and would like to begin using their preferred pronoun. Heart Rate is not sure how the manager and the employee's team member will react. This is the first time a request such as this has occurred, and Heart Rate does not want to offend the transitioning team member by inappropriately communicating the request to the team. Which of the following is the best action Heart Rate can take at this stage? A. Ask the employee how they would like the information shared. B. Schedule diversity and inclusion training for the employee's department. C. Update the company policies to ensure that there is clear anti-discrimination language that covers transitioning employees. D. Do nothing. Let the transitioning team member notify others in their own time and in their own way. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Ask the employee how they would like the information shared. In situations where there is lack of precedent or clarity, such as with a transitioning employee, it is a best practice to partner with a team member to ensure they remain firmly in control of the information they would like shared and how they would prefer it be shared. This should be an ongoing conversation to ensure the employee feels safe and supported, and that any discriminatory or hateful behavior is immediately addressed through policy, training, or other methods. Flashcard 129. Which of the following employee groups are most at risk for workplace violence? A. Retail workers. B. LGBTQ employees. C. Women. D. Hotel maids. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Women. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, more than 71% of the victims of workplace violence are women. Flashcard 130. Which of the following total reward strategies can be effective when designing CSR initiatives? A. Auditing pay practices to look for pay disparities. B. Lobbying for socialized medicine. C. Designing systems to encourage employee savings. D. Paying above average wages in global areas that are economically depressed. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Designing systems to encourage employee savings. All Heart Rate systems provide opportunities to design meaningful corporate, social responsibility CSR initiatives that address the needs of various stakeholders. In total rewards, Heart Rate can help employees save for retirement, to purchase a house, or for emergencies. Flashcard 131. Under which of the following laws is retaliation prohibited? A. The Americans with Disabilities Act. B. Title Roman 7 of the Civil Rights Act. C. State-specific laws. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. Retaliation continues to be the most cited violation filed with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It is prohibited under most anti-discrimination labor laws and in various state statutes. Flashcard 132. Why is it important for heart rate professionals to develop their listening skills? A. To fully engage with heart rate stakeholders to meet their needs. B. To use their influence with other organizational leaders to gain buy-in for heart rate initiatives. C. To harness the power of conflict toward innovative problem-solving. D. To adequately respond when faced with difficult conversations. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To fully engage with heart rate stakeholders to meet their needs. There are many compelling reasons for all employees to develop their listening skills. For heart rate professionals charged with meeting the needs of many stakeholders, it is particularly important to engage in active listening to fully understand the needs prior to driving change or designing solutions. Flashcard 133. What is the primary purpose of a job posting? A. To ensure equity in the recruiting process. B. To continuously recruit for difficult-to-fill positions. C. To allow current employees to apply for open positions within the organization. D. To accurately track employee development opportunities and interests. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. To allow current employees to apply for open positions within the organization. A job posting is a recruitment tool used to announce open positions with the company and allow internal candidates to apply before opening it up to the general public. Flashcard 134. Which of the following is the most important heart rate behavior when using their influence to drive organizational change? A. Modeling the change for other leaders. B. Advocating for the needs of the employee. C. Protecting the company from risk. D. Acting with integrity. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Acting with integrity regardless of the heart rate activity, whether it is managing change, designing heart rate systems, or contributing to organizational strategy. Heart rate must act with integrity and in accordance to the values of the organization. Flashcard 135. Which of the following are content areas being addressed international labor relations organizations? A. Child labor. B. Overtime. C. Wages. D. All of the above. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. All of the above. A collective effort has been undertaken on an international level to address workplace issues that are barriers to world peace. These issues include freedom to organize, elimination of child labor, establishment of a standard workday, and fair wages to eliminate poverty. Flashcard 136. Which of the following is not a major provision of the Fair Labor Standards Act FLSA? A. Minimum wage. B. Child labor restrictions. C. Mandatory severance pay. D. Overtime pay regulations. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Mandatory severance pay. Flashcard 137. Under the FLSA, what is the minimum wage requirement as of January 2025? A $10.50 per hour. B. $6.75 per hour. C. $15 per hour. D. $7.25 per hour. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. $7.25 per hour. Flashcard 138. Which law clarifies which types of work activities are compensable under the FLSA? A. Davis-Bacon Act. B. Portal-to-Portal Act. C. Equal Pay Act. D. Walsh-Ely Act. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Portal-to-Portal Act. Flashcard 139. Which of the following statements about exempt employees is true? A. Exempt employees are always paid hourly. B. Only employees earning less than $684 per week can qualify as exempt. C. To be exempt, an employee's job duties must fit within specific exemption. D. Exempt employees must be paid overtime when they work more than 40 hours per week. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. To be exempt, an employee's job duties must fit within specific exemption. Flashcard 140. Which of the following is not one of the primary exemption categories under the FLSA? A. Professional. B. Technical. C. Executive. D. Administrative. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Technical. Flashcard 141. Under federal child labor laws, which of the following jobs can a 16-year-old legally perform? A. Operating a meat slicer in a restaurant. B. Working in a lugging facility. C. Performing non-hazardous work in a restaurant outside of school hours. D. Working unlimited hours in hazardous conditions. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Performing non-hazardous work in a restaurant outside of school hours. Flashcard 142. Which of the following factors is most important in determining whether a worker is classified as an employee or an independent contractor? A. The amount of hours worked per week. B. The level of control the employer has over how the worker performs their job. C. Whether the worker receives health insurance benefits. D. Whether the worker has a college degree. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. The level of control the employer has over how the worker performs their job. Flashcard 143. Which law requires contractors and subcontractors on federally funded construction projects to pay locally prevailing wages? A. Service Contract Act. B. Equal Pay Act. C. Walsh-Healy Act. D. Davis-Bacon Act. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Davis-Bacon Act. Flashcard 144. A company is considering hiring a software developer as an independent contractor instead of a full-time employee. What is the primary risk of misclassifying this worker? A. The worker may demand more vacation days. B. The worker may refuse to complete assignments. C. The company may have to pay back taxes, penalties, and benefits. D. The worker will be eligible for overtime pay. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. The company may have to pay back taxes, penalties, and benefits. Flashcard 145. A manufacturing company wants to classify a factory supervisor as an exempt employee to avoid paying overtime. The supervisor earns $800 per week and manages a team of 5 employees. What additional factor must be considered to determine if they qualify as exempt? A. Whether they receive performance-based bonuses. B. Whether they work more than 40 hours per week. C. Whether they primarily perform managerial duties. D. Whether they are paid on a biweekly schedule. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Whether they primarily perform managerial duties. Flashcard 146. An heart rate professional promises employees that workload concerns will be addressed. To maintain credibility, what is the best follow-up action? A. Enforce overtime requirements to meet organizational deadlines. B. Avoid raising the issue with leadership to prevent conflict. C. Provide transparent updates and share next steps with employees. D. Redirect employees to their managers without further involvement. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Provide transparent updates and share next steps with employees. Flashcard 147. A remote employee reports feeling disconnected from the team. What action best demonstrates heart rate's ability to build trust with distributed staff? A. Telling the employee to be more proactive in communication. B. Ensuring remote employees are included in recognition programs. C. Ignoring the concern because distributed work is now standard. D. Recommending they come into the office once a month. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Ensuring remote employees are included in recognition programs. Flashcard 148. Which SHRM competency is most directly tied to building strong, trusted relationships in heart rate? A. Business acumen. B. Consultation. C. Critical evaluation. D. Relationship management. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Relationship management. Flashcard 149. Executives are focused on reducing absenteeism. Which heart rate initiative is most aligned with leadership's agenda? A. Hosting a community volunteer event. B. Requiring all employees to clock in and out more strictly. C. Proposing a flexible wellness program tied to reducing absences. D. Launching a mentoring program for new graduates. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Proposing a flexible wellness program tied to reducing absences. Flashcard 150. Which heart rate concept refers to creating a safe space where employees feel comfortable reporting sensitive issues? A. Psychological safety. B. Strategic alignment. C. Employee engagement. D. Performance coaching. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Psychological safety. Flashcard 151. Which attribute ensures employees trust heart rate to act fairly and ethically in all interactions? A. Empathy. B. Integrity. C. Networking. D. Adaptability. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Integrity. Flashcard 152. In heart rate, what does reciprocity most often look like in practice? A. Heart rate issuing corrective action swiftly to all employees. B. Heart rate requiring strict compliance with policies. C. Heart rate involving employees in decision-making and showing trust in their input. D. Heart rate limiting communication to reduce conflict. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Heart rate involving employees in decision-making and showing trust in their input. Flashcard 153. An employee has just returned from medical leave. Which heart rate response best demonstrates relationship management competency? A. Ignoring the situation to avoid making the employee uncomfortable. B. Keeping the focus strictly on compliance with return-to-work paperwork. C. Proactively checking in and offering resources tailored to the employee's needs. D. Asking the employee to immediately resume all previous duties. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Proactively checking in and offering resources tailored to the employee's needs. Flashcard 154. What is the most important outcome of clear heart rate communication during a policy change? A. Higher compensation benchmarking. B. Compliance with labor law. C. Reduced heart rate workload. D. Employee trust and reduced misunderstandings. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Employee trust and reduced misunderstandings. Flashcard 155. What does external competitiveness in compensation strategy refer to? A. The pay relationships within an organization. B. The process of setting internal pay grades. C. The organization's pay relative to its competitors. D. The legal requirements of wage compliance. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. The organization's pay relative to its competitors. Flashcard 156. Which of the following is an objective of pay level and pay mix decisions? A. Ensure employees receive equal pay regardless of role. B. Control costs and increase revenues. C. Avoid the need for compensation surveys. D. Standardize pay rates across industries. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Control costs and increase revenues. Flashcard 157. Which factor is not commonly used to define relevant labor markets? A. Occupation skill/knowledge required. B. Geographic location. C. Competitors in product/service markets. D. Employee satisfaction survey results. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Employee Satisfaction Survey Results. Flashcard 158. Which of the following best describes the employer of choice pay strategy? A. Competing based on overall company reputation beyond pay. B. Offering only base pay with no incentives or benefits. C. Paying employees below market rates to minimize costs. D. Using a strict tenure-based pay structure. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Competing based on overall company reputation beyond pay. Flashcard 159. Why do organizations conduct compensation surveys? A. To develop financial models for heart rate analytics. B. To collect and assess pay data from competitors. C. To ensure all employees receive the same salary. D. To avoid having to set a pay policy line. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. To collect and assess pay data from competitors. Flashcard 160. Which job evaluation approach involves selecting benchmark jobs to anchor pay comparisons? A. Job ranking approach. B. Benchmark job approach. C. Job grading approach. D. Market leveling approach. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Benchmark job approach. Flashcard 161. What is the primary purpose of a pay policy line? A. To translate external competitive policy into practice. B. To eliminate pay grades and structures. C. To standardize compensation across all industries. D. To ensure all employees receive annual bonuses. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To translate external competitive policy into practice. Flashcard 162. Which of the following is a key characteristic of broad banding? A. Consolidating multiple pay grades into fewer, wider bands. B. Ensuring employees are paid strictly based on years of service. C. Eliminating pay differentials across job levels. D. Removing all internal compensation structures. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Consolidating multiple pay grades into fewer, wider bands. Flashcard 163. A company is considering shifting from a traditional pay structure to a broad banding system. What is one potential advantage of broad banding? A. It increases the rigidity of pay structures. B. It eliminates pay for performance incentives. C. It provides greater flexibility in employee career growth. D. It ensures strict salary caps for all employees. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. It provides greater flexibility in employee career growth. Flashcard 164. An heart rate manager needs to set competitive pay levels for a new division in the company. What would be the most effective first step? A. Setting pay based on employee tenure. B. Conducting a compensation survey of similar roles in the market. C. Implementing an automatic annual salary increase. D. Assigning arbitrary pay grades without external data. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Conducting a compensation survey of similar roles in the market. Flashcard 165. Why is negotiation considered a core heart rate skill? A. It reduces the need for communication. B. It balances employee and organizational needs while preserving relationships. C. It eliminates the need for conflict management. D. It ensures strict compliance without flexibility. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. It balances employee and organizational needs while preserving relationships. Flashcard 166. What does a mutually acceptable agreement in heart rate negotiation mean? A. One party gets everything they want. B. Both parties feel their essential interests are addressed. C. Employees always receive higher benefits. D. Compliance is achieved without compromise. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Both parties feel their essential interests are addressed. Flashcard 167. Which of the following is a feature of complex negotiations? A. They do not require preparation. B. They are simple and resolved quickly. C. They typically have long-term implications. D. They involve limited stakeholders. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. They typically have long-term implications. Flashcard 168. Which skill allows heart rate to uncover underlying needs rather than just stated demands? A. Silence and avoidance. B. Technical expertise. C. Strategic questioning. D. Strict enforcement. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Strategic questioning. Flashcard 169. What does BATNA stand for in negotiation? A. Business alternative to new agreement. B. Best action toward negotiated agreement. C. Balanced agreement for team negotiation. D. Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Flashcard 170. Why is follow-up important after reaching a negotiation agreement? A. To ensure long-term compliance and accountability. B. To avoid communication with stakeholders. C. To replace the agreement with new terms. D. To renegotiate the same issues immediately. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To ensure long-term compliance and accountability. Flashcard 171. Two managers disagree over budget allocation. What is heart rate's best role? A. Stay silent and avoid involvement. B. Mediate as a neutral facilitator focused on shared goals. C. Take one manager's side to resolve the issue quickly. D. Impose heart rate's decision without input. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Mediate as a neutral facilitator focused on shared goals. Flashcard 172. An employee requests 3 remote days, but the real issue is work-life balance. How should heart rate respond? A. Deny the request to maintain consistency. B. Focus only on the 3-day request. C. Ask the employee to submit a formal grievance. D. Address the underlying interest and explore flexible solutions. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Address the underlying interest and explore flexible solutions. Flashcard 173. During a heated conversation, an employee reacts angrily to corrective feedback. What should heart rate do first? A. Ignore the emotions and continue with discipline. B. Validate the employee's emotions and redirect towards solutions. C. End the meeting immediately. D. Allow the employee to dictate new terms of employment. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Validate the employee's emotions and redirect towards solutions. Flashcard 174. Heart rate is negotiating a new union contract. What strategy best demonstrates advanced heart rate competency? A. Letting union leaders dictate final terms. B. Balancing employee demands with organizational sustainability. C. Prioritizing speed over fairness. D. Avoiding preparation to appear flexible. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Balancing employee demands with organizational sustainability. Flashcard 175. What is the primary purpose of the feedback loop in communication? A. To confirm the receiver has interpreted the message correctly. B. To reduce the number of communication channels. C. To ensure the sender maintains authority. D. To allow heart rate to restate policies without input. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To confirm the receiver has interpreted the message correctly. Flashcard 176. Which factor should heart rate consider first when planning communication? A. The purpose of the message. B. The number of slides in the presentation. C. The legal risks of silence. D. The technical jargon used. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. The purpose of the message. Flashcard 177. Which behavior best demonstrates active listening and heart rate? A. Taking notes silently. B. Immediately giving solutions without reflection. C. Avoiding eye contact to prevent intimidation. D. Paraphrasing the concern to confirm understanding. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Paraphrasing the concern to confirm understanding. Flashcard 178. Why are open-ended questions important in heart rate communication? A. They encourage employees to share deeper insights. B. They reduce compliance requirements. C. They prevent employees from asking further questions. D. They close off discussion quickly. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. They encourage employees to share deeper insights. Flashcard 179. Which of the following is the most inappropriate medium for delivering layoff notices? A. Face-to-face meeting. B. Email. C. Small group session. D. Phone call. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Email. Flashcard 180. Which nonverbal cue best supports heart rate credibility in sensitive discussions? A. Speaking quickly to shorten the meeting. B. Avoiding eye contact to appear neutral. C. Maintaining eye contact and open body language. D. Crossing arms to signal authority. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Maintaining eye contact and open body language. Flashcard 181. After rolling out a new PTO policy, what action best ensures employee understanding? A. Assuming employees read the policy. B. Asking managers to restate the policy in their own words. C. Resending the same email twice. D. Posting the policy on the intranet only. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Asking managers to restate the policy in their own words. Flashcard 182. Which heart rate communication style is most appropriate for a workplace investigation? A. Neutral and precise language. B. Informal and humorous tone. C. Motivational storytelling. D. Silence until final decisions. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Neutral and precise language. Flashcard 183. Which strategy best enhances an heart rate town hall presentation? A. Presenting in technical heart rate jargon. B. Using only statistics without stories. C. Avoiding employee questions to stay on time. D. Encouraging two-way dialogue and Q&A. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Encouraging two-way dialogue and Q&A. Flashcard 184. When delivering a termination decision, what heart rate action best balances respect and professionalism? A. Announcing it in a staff meeting. B. Delivering it privately with support resources. C. Allowing peers to communicate the message. D. Sending the message in writing only. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Delivering it privately with support resources. Flashcard 185. What is the primary goal of strategic message delivery in heart rate? A. To reduce compliance risks only. B. To ensure messages are long and detailed. C. To minimize employee input. D. To align communication with organizational goals. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. To align communication with organizational goals. Flashcard 186. Why is filtering important when heart rate presents information? A. To prevent employees from asking questions. B. To ensure only executives get communication. C. To eliminate follow-up responsibilities. D. To avoid overwhelming the audience with irrelevant details. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. To avoid overwhelming the audience with irrelevant details. Flashcard 187. When tailoring heart rate messages to executives, what should be emphasized? A. Business outcomes such as ROI. B. Compliance risks only C. Lengthy policy details D. Employee emotions only. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Business outcomes such as ROI. Flashcard 188. Which medium is most appropriate for communicating a company-wide compliance update? A. Email with FAQs B. Anonymous surveys C. Informal hallway chats D. Face-to-face meetings only. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Email with FAQs. Flashcard 189. Why should heart rate use business-focused vocabulary? A. To connect heart rate concepts to organizational priorities B. To avoid addressing compliance C. To show heart rate expertise D. To replace data with emotions. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. To connect heart rate concepts to organizational priorities. Flashcard 190. What is the best way heart rate can ensure clarity when communicating FMLA rights? A. Jargon-heavy heart rate terms B. Using plain language and examples C. Technical compliance language D. Silence until decisions are final. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Using plain language and examples. Flashcard 191. Heart rate is crafting a message for an employee-first company. What communication style best aligns with the brand? A. Silence until decisions are final B. Jargon-heavy heart rate term C. Technical compliance language D. Transparent and empathetic tone. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Transparent and empathetic tone. Flashcard 192. When advocating for a new DEI initiative, what is the most effective communication strategy? A. Avoid presenting a business case B. Combine turnover cost data with employee stories C. Focus solely on employee anecdotes D. Present only ROI without context. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Combine turnover cost data with employee stories. Flashcard 193. A manager is tasked with explaining a new performance system. What should heart rate provide to ensure accuracy? A. Legal documents without explanation B. Freedom to interpret policies independently C. Scripts and FAQs for consistency D. No guidance to maintain flexibility. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is C. Scripts and FAQs for consistency. Flashcard 194. When delivering high-visibility messages such as restructuring, what approach best demonstrates heart rate competency? A. Delivering with confidence, clarity, and empathy B. Outsourcing delivery to non-heart rate staff C. Minimizing transparency to avoid panic D. Using only written memos. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Delivering with confidence, clarity, and empathy. Flashcard 195. The car company you work for recently became the most valuable car company in the world. They compete by emphasizing the uniqueness of their brand in a high-priced market. Which of the following best describes their competitive strategy? A. Buyer power B. Differentiation C. Competitive advantage D. Cost leadership. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Differentiation. A competitive strategy of differentiation is built on offering high quality and often more expensive elements such as material, service, or functionality, making B the correct choice. A cost leadership strategy, D, is achieved by focusing on a low-cost product. Buyer power refers to a business being so large that they can leverage the cost of raw materials. Competitive advantage, C, is what is said to exist when an organization dominates a market due to their ability to produce goods or services more effectively than their competition. Flashcard 196. A client services leader is resisting the need to restructure their department to include offshoring a portion of the call center to India. They say it is because they are not confident that they will have access to the financial or people resources they need to make the new department structure effective. In which of Peter Senge's disciplines does this leader most likely need support? A. Personal mastery. B. Systems thinking. C. Team learning. D. Mental modeling. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Mental modeling. According to Senge, mental modeling is a form of information processing that is built on a team member's beliefs or attitudes about an organization, making D the correct answer. Personal mastery is focused on achieving an individual vision, whereas systems thinking B is taking a whole view as opposed to an individual view. Team learning C exists when each team member is actively involved in problem solving, not just leadership. Flashcard 197. The company you work for publishes the following on their About Us section of their website. We exist to help improve lives through business. It is embedded in everything we do. This is the best example of which of the following? A. Mission statement. B. Values statement. C. Corporate governance compliance. D. Social justice commitment. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Mission statement. The correct answer is A. A corporate mission statement is one that defines the reason for a company's existence, the purpose of their efforts. B. Values is a statement of the non-negotiable behaviors that guide a company's decision-making. Corporate governance. C. is a regulatory effort, and D. is an effort by individuals to ensure economic, political, and social rights for all. Flashcard 198. One of your company's strategic initiatives this year is to move to a self-insured captive health insurance plan. You have been asked to identify the key milestones that will need to be achieved in order to implement the new program effectively. Which step of setting smarter goals are you most likely in? A. Specific. B. Attainable. C. Time-based. D. Evaluated. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is D. Evaluated. The correct answer is D. When setting a smarter goal, it is important to define the desired outcome, ensure that the goal is achievable, B. that it has an established project timeline, C. and that key milestones are identified in order to evaluate success, D. Flashcard 199. What should be the next step after a strategy has been formulated? A. Strategic planning. B. Goal setting. C. Strategy alignment. D. Strategy evaluation. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is B. Goal setting. The correct answer is B. Goal setting is part of the strategy implementation phase of the strategic planning process, as is strategy alignment, C. Strategy evaluation, D, occurs after an initiative has been implemented. Flashcard 200. The use of key assumptions and risk assessment are characteristics of which of the following business analytics tools? A. Scenario planning. B. SWOT audit. C. Growth share matrix. D. Smarter goals. Pause and think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is A. Scenario planning. The correct answer is A. In scenario planning, an issue is identified and then leaders come together to make key assumptions, consider systems impact, conduct a risk assessment, study the people impact, and summarize the findings. This data is used to create a response plan S should the issue actually arise. A SWOT audit, B, is a scanning tool used to assess internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. The growth share matrix, C, helps organizations prioritize strategies, and setting smarter goals is the action planning step of the strategic planning process.